If you're watching this right now, drop a comment telling me where you're from. Hit that like button and subscribe, because you won't believe how my own brother tried to kick me out of the only home I've ever known, on my dad's birthday. My name is Emily Carter. I'm 32, the youngest daughter of Robert Carter, the man who's been my whole world since my mom passed away. 5 years ago, I gave up my career, my apartment, and my relationship to take care of him. Today is his 70th birthday. I'd spent weeks planning a celebration that I hoped would remind him of happier times, a carefully cooked dinner, photo displays from his life, even a surprise trip I'd been saving up for. But before dessert, my older brother Jason stood up at the table, holding his wine glass like he was the king of the world. And with the smuggest smile I've ever seen, he said, "Pack your bags, Emily. This house is going up for sale." The room erupted in cheers, except mine. My heart shattered in an instant. My dad looked confused, almost lost. I felt the air rush out of my lungs. I stood up, walked outside, and with shaking hands, made one quick call. "It's happening, exactly like we feared. I need you here. Now." 5 years ago, my life looked nothing like this. I was a marketing manager in Chicago, climbing the ladder fast. My downtown apartment overlooked Lake Michigan. I had a boyfriend, Tyler, who worked in software. My days were packed with client meetings, my nights with wine bars and live music. Everything changed with one phone call from Jason. "Dad's not doing well," he'd said, his voice flat. "He forgets to eat, barely leaves the house. Someone needs to check on him." Jason, at 40, was the family's golden boy, a CFO with a 6-figure salary, a big house in the suburbs, and 2 kids. My sister, Rachel, 38, lived in Colorado, busy with her own family. Both of them were too busy to be here for Dad. I came for what I thought would be 3 months. I never left. Dad was grieving so deeply after Mom's death that even getting him to take his medication was a challenge. And slowly, I began to notice little things, moments of forgetfulness, small confusion, the kind of signs you don't want to admit might be the start of something bigger. So, I quit my job. Ended things with Tyler, who didn't want to leave the city. And moved back into my childhood bedroom. That old colonial house wasn't just walls and bricks. It was where Dad built us a treehouse, where Mom's pie recipe was taped to the fridge, where every corner whispered memories. And I stayed, even when Jason called me a glorified nurse and Rachel told me I was wasting my potential. They had opinions but no real offers to help. The only person who understood was Uncle Mark. He'd drive in from Cleveland, bring groceries, and call Dad twice a week. He'd tell Jason and Rachel, "Your sister's making a sacrifice you weren't willing to make. You should be grateful." They weren't. And I didn't know it yet, but they were planning something behind my back. The birthday party had been my chance to bring everyone together for Dad. The menu was all his favorites: beef Wellington, Mom's apple pie, champagne like they had at their wedding. I'd even dug through the attic for old photos and made an album that traced his whole life. But in the weeks before, Jason kept having private meetings with Dad's new wife, Linda, a nurse he'd married 2 years ago after meeting her at the clinic. At first, she seemed sweet. Lately, she'd been different. She'd started making little comments like, "Wouldn't you want more privacy? You're in your 30s, living with your father." And now I knew why. They'd been plotting this for months. And the birthday toast was just their way of dropping the bomb in front of everyone. Only, I wasn't leaving without a fight. 5 minutes ago, my brother tried to throw me out of my own father's house, during his 70th birthday party. I was standing on the porch, clutching my phone so tight my knuckles turned white. The cool autumn air felt like ice in my lungs. "Michael, it's happening exactly like we feared. I need you here. Now." Michael Hayes wasn't just an old college friend, he was an elder law attorney. We'd met in business ethics class, the irony still makes us laugh, and while I'd gone into marketing, he'd spent the last decade defending seniors from exactly this kind of exploitation. When Dad married Linda 2 years ago, I'd been cautiously optimistic. She seemed attentive, helpful, but I noticed little cracks early on. Her comments about the value of the house. Her vague disinterest in family photos. The way she lit up whenever Jason visited, and not in a sister-in-law kind of way. I started keeping notes. Every offhand comment, every strange visitor she brought over, every time Dad seemed groggy after she gave him something to help him rest. And when I saw her and Jason huddled over paperwork one afternoon, papers that looked suspiciously like real estate documents, I called Michael. His advice was simple: prepare. Quietly. I also looped in Uncle Mark. Even while undergoing cancer treatments, he promised to be there for me. Keep your eyes open, Em, he'd said over the phone. Your mom wanted this house to stay in the family, with whoever took care of your dad. Don't let them take it from you. Back inside the house, I could hear laughter, the kind that felt sharp, not warm. Jason's voice carried over everyone else's. Oakwood Terraces has a wine lounge, Dad. You'll love it there. I stepped in just in time to see Frank, some real estate friend Linda had invited, spreading glossy brochures across the dining table. Right on top of the birthday cake. George and Martha, Dad's oldest neighbors, were sitting off to the side, their faces tight. They knew this wasn't right. Dad, this is your home, I said, my voice steady but firm. You don't have to go anywhere you don't want to. Jason smirked. Actually, Em, he does. I have power of attorney now. It's already decided. Dad looked between us, confused. I thought Emily and I were going to Lake Tahoe. Linda patted his arm like he was a child. Oh, sweetheart, that's just not practical. That's when headlights swept across the front window. Michael's black sedan pulled into the driveway. Michael walked in like he owned the place, tailored suit, calm expression, a slim folder tucked under his arm. Sorry to interrupt, he said, scanning the room. But I believe some of you have been making decisions that may not be entirely legal. Jason's face went pale. Linda stiffened. Frank's eyes narrowed. Michael walked over to Dad, knelt down beside his chair, and spoke gently. Mr. Carter, can you tell me what day it is? Dad hesitated. It's my birthday? And who's the president? Michael asked. Dad gave the correct answer without missing a beat. Michael stood. Good. That means you're capable of making your own decisions. Which means, he pulled a document from his folder. This so-called power of attorney your son claims to have? We're challenging it, effective immediately. Jason tried to bluster. You can't just. Oh, I can, Michael said, his voice calm but razor-sharp. Especially since we have medical statements from Dr. Kapoor confirming Robert Carter's competency, dated last week. And, we have a witness on the way who can verify certain conversations about this house. Right on cue, another set of headlights lit up the room. Uncle Mark had arrived. Jason glanced at Linda. Linda glanced at Frank. And for the first time that night, they didn't look so smug. 5 minutes after my lawyer friend Michael walked into my dad's birthday party, the entire mood in the room shifted. Jason's smug grin had vanished. Linda was fidgeting with her wine glass, eyes darting to the door like she was calculating an escape route. Frank, the real estate guy, started slowly packing up his brochures, like maybe if he moved quietly enough, he could vanish without anyone noticing. And then the door opened again. Uncle Mark stepped inside. Even in the middle of cancer treatments, he had that same steady presence, the kind that made everyone else sit up straighter. He wasn't wearing a suit like Michael. Just jeans, a worn leather jacket, and a determined expression. Happy birthday, Rob, he said, walking over to hug my dad. Then he looked straight at Jason and Linda. Funny thing. I hear you've been planning to sell this house without telling the one person who's been keeping it running for the last 5 years. Jason crossed his arms. We're doing what's best for Dad. No, Uncle Mark said flatly. You're doing what's best for yourselves. Michael set his folder on the table. We have documented evidence that Robert Carter is competent to make his own living arrangements. We also have a copy of Margaret Carter's will, which clearly states that the house stays in the family and passes to the child who takes care of Robert in his later years. Linda's voice went icy. That will is outdated. Harold and I. Robert, Michael corrected sharply. Robert and I are married. That changes things. Not in the way you think, Michael said, flipping open a page. Marriage doesn't erase the stipulations in Margaret's estate plan. And based on what Emily has told me, and what witnesses have seen, it's starting to look like there's been some undue influence here. That was when George, the neighbor, cleared his throat. I don't like getting involved in family matters. But I've seen strangers walking this property during the day when Emily and Robert weren't home. And Linda told me they were potential buyers. The room went dead silent. Linda's cheeks flushed. That's ridiculous. They were friends. Martha spoke up. Friends who were taking measurements of the living room? Jason slammed his hand on the table. Enough. This is Dad's decision. And he already told us. No, Dad said suddenly, his voice trembling but firm. I didn't tell you to sell my house. I thought we were just looking at options. Linda's eyes widened. Sweetheart. I want to stay here, Dad said, louder this time. With Emily. Michael nodded, sliding a pen across the table. Then let's make that official. We can draft a care agreement, right now, stating that Emily is the primary caregiver, and that no property decisions can be made without her consent. Jason's jaw clenched so hard I thought his teeth might crack. Linda reached for her wine again. Frank muttered something about needing to make a call and slipped toward the door. I could feel my heart pounding. For months I'd been holding my breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop. And now, the shoe was halfway in the trash. But I also knew Jason and Linda weren't going to give up this easily. If you've been following this story, you know my brother Jason just tried to sell my dad's house out from under us, on his birthday. But after Michael and Uncle Mark walked in, the tables started turning. And that's when Jason and Linda made their last desperate move. Linda set down her wine glass and put on that fake, sugar-sweet smile she used whenever she wanted to look like the innocent one. Look, we can all agree we just want Robert to be safe and comfortable, she said, using her best nurse voice. Jason nodded quickly. Exactly. And Oakwood Terraces isn't just any facility, it's the best in the state. Dad would have full-time care, social activities. He already has full-time care, I cut in. It's me. Linda's smile didn't even flicker. Emily, I understand you've tried to be there for your father, but you don't have medical training. And honestly, she looked around the room for backup. Isn't it time you focused on your own life? There it was. The same line she'd been feeding me for months. Translation, move out so we can sell the place. Jason slid a stack of papers toward Michael. This is Dad's updated care plan. Signed this morning. Michael didn't even touch it. Where was this signed? At my office, Jason said, a little too fast. And was Emily notified? Michael asked. She didn't need to be. Michael finally picked up the papers, scanning them. His eyebrow arched. Interesting, because this signature doesn't match Robert's on record. And, oh, look, it's missing a required witness signature. Which means it's legally worthless. Linda's cheeks flushed crimson. Jason opened his mouth to argue, but Michael wasn't done. And here's the real kicker, since Dr. Kapoor confirmed Robert's competence, any decisions made without his full understanding and consent are null and void. Which means this little ambush you staged today? Also worthless. For the first time all night, Jason looked rattled. You think you're so smart, Emily. But this isn't over. The market's hot. Eventually, Dad will need to sell. That's fine, I said. If he decides it, and not because you or Linda tricked him into it. Dad cleared his throat. Everyone went quiet. I'm staying here, he said, his voice steady. This is my home. It's where Margaret and I raised our kids. Where she baked pies and I built a treehouse. And when I'm gone, it's going to Emily, because she's the one who's been here. Not you two. Jason's face was pure stone. Linda's hand tightened on his arm like she was trying to hold him back from saying something worse. Michael leaned forward, voice calm but sharp enough to cut glass. If either of you attempt to interfere again, we will file for a restraining order under the Elder Abuse and Exploitation statutes. And I assure you, you will lose. Jason pushed back his chair so hard it nearly toppled. Fine. But don't come crying to me when she drains you dry, Dad. Linda stood too, grabbing her coat. Enjoy your little victory, Emily. It won't last. They walked out without another word. The door slammed. I didn't realize how hard I was shaking until Uncle Mark put a hand on my shoulder. You did good, kid. Your mom would be proud. Michael smiled faintly. We bought you more than just time, Emily. We've locked this place down. They can't touch it without your say-so now. But even as relief flooded through me, I knew one thing. This wasn't just about a house anymore. It was about keeping my dad safe, no matter what they tried next. After the chaos of my dad's birthday, after Jason and Linda stormed out, after Michael locked down the house legally, I finally felt like I could breathe. But I still had one more surprise. The next morning, I woke up early to the smell of coffee. Dad was already in the kitchen, wearing his old plaid robe, humming to himself as he buttered toast. You're up early, I said, still rubbing sleep from my eyes. He smiled at me, the kind of soft smile I hadn't seen much since Mom died. Didn't sleep much, he admitted. Kept thinking about everything. About what you've given up for me. My chest tightened. You don't have to thank me, Dad. I wanted to be here. He reached over, took my hand. I know. And I know your mother would have been proud of you. I swallowed hard, then slid a silver-wrapped envelope across the table toward him. What's this? He asked. Open it. He carefully unwrapped it, unfolded the paper inside, and his eyes went wide. Lake Tahoe? 2 tickets? I nodded. You always told me about that sunrise, the one you and Mom saw when you got engaged. I thought maybe we could go see it together. For a second, he didn't say anything. Then his eyes glistened, and he let out a shaky laugh. I thought Jason said I couldn't travel. Jason doesn't get to decide anymore, I said firmly. A week later, we were standing at the edge of Lake Tahoe. The water was glassy, reflecting streaks of pink and gold from the sky. Dad stood with his hands in his pockets, taking it in, breathing deeply like he wanted to memorize the air itself. You know, he said quietly, when I asked your mom to marry me, right over there by those rocks, I thought I'd never be happier. But right now, he shook his head with a smile. Right now comes pretty close. I felt tears sting my eyes. She'd want you to be happy, Dad. She'd want you to be safe. We stood there until the sun broke fully over the horizon, painting the lake in colors that felt almost unreal. And in that moment, all the noise, the fights, the betrayal, the paperwork, the slammed doors, faded away. Back home, the house felt different. Not because anything had changed physically, but because it finally felt ours again. Michael had filed the care agreement with the county. Uncle Mark called every other day to check in. George and Martha stopped by with bread and coffee. And Jason? He sent one curt text, "Hope you're happy." I didn't reply. Because I was happy. Not because I'd won, but because Dad still had his home, and his dignity, and the right to decide how he wanted to live. So if you're watching this, here's my message to you. Family drama can cut deep, but standing up for someone you love, even when it's messy, even when you're scared, that's what matters. And if anyone ever tries to take away what's important to you, remember, you can fight back. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Hit like if you'd stand up for your family.